Well, it's a Monday afternoon. It's hot and sunny outside here in the UK. Very humid. I'm sweating a bit, and it feels like I'm still on holiday, but I'm not. I'm back home. I came back on Friday evening from a 2-week trip in Central Asia. It's quite an adventurous holiday. First one I've done like that for quite a few years since before COVID. It's a region I've been meaning to go to for years, and I just thought, well, pick and choose a region, and that's the region I chose. So, where did I go? Well, I started off in Tajikistan, then went to Kyrgyzstan, then into Kazakhstan. I did the capital city, so Dushanbe in Tajikistan, Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan, and then onto the former capital, Almaty in Kazakhstan, and up to the current capital of Kazakhstan, which is Astana. Overall, it was a fantastic trip. I liked all four locations really a great deal. They're all very different, and I like them for very different reasons. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the trip and what my opinions were before I actually start putting videos out. So start off in Tajikistan. I had to get there. Obviously, it was a little bit of a complicated trip going from flying Wizz Air from Luton to Istanbul, and they had to do a self-transfer in Istanbul, which is a pain in the backside. But then I got a flight on Uzbek Airways to Tashkent, which was fantastic. I mean, the food and that's some of the best airline food I've ever had. And then a quick hop from Tashkent to Dushanbe. Impressions of Dushanbe? Well, it was very hot. It was like 40 degrees every day. Every day I was there. I was there for sort of 2.5 days. Very modern city, very heavily developed over recent years. Lots of high-rise development, but it's got these wide avenues. So the development is not packed in like say like Hong Kong or the city of London as it is now. There's actually spaces between the buildings, and but a lot of redevelopment. I'm guessing if you lived in the city for the last 30 years, it's changed in a way that you can possibly imagine. My hostel was the city hostel. It was in a city centre, maybe about half an hour walk from the main heart. It was a fantastic hostel, but the area it was in was a bit more run down. It looked like the kind of area that's about to be demolished. Like they're just letting it rot, so they can actually buy it, so people can buy up the land and just put in some 20-story apartment blocks with restaurants and shops and bars underneath. So yeah, I'm sure it won't last too long. In that area, it did seem to be a little bit of a poorer sort of sub-district of the city, but it didn't feel dangerous at all. There was a big sort of the early signs of a construction site just around the corner from my hostel, which looked like more of a hole in the ground that people were using to dump all their rubbish. But that's quite normal, I suppose. City itself, well, as I say, hyper modern, hyper developed, hyper high rise. No mega tools or anything like that, so they didn't go completely crazy. But some of the monuments are pretty insane. There was one monument which is called the Istiklal monument, which wasn't in this book, so it got me a bit confused. I'll probably put a picture up here. It was it's a bit of a bizarre one, but it's quite indicative of the kind of development they've done in the city. The facades are very Islamic influenced, which made some of the apartments look really kind of interesting, really pretty. Although some of the buildings were of a classical style, which I don't know what it's officially called, but I'll describe it as kind of a futuristic classical, or like a steampunk classical. It's the kind of classical you would see in a comic book that was trying to do some sort of futuristic type, let's say futuristic classical, very monumental, almost going to the right realms of sort of like Gothic automation without actually getting there. It's hard to explain. Kind of weird, kind of odd. I'm not sure whether I liked it or not, but it wasn't horrific. I've seen far worse. In terms of the actual attractions, well, I went to the National Museum, which is one of these sort of modernist buildings. Okay, very interesting. Lots of reverence for the President Emomali Rahman, I think his name is. He's been president since 1992 or 1994. Lots of grand presentation of how great he is. It's one of those places. But it is still an interesting museum in terms of its fine arts. Well, I say fine art is artistic. It's artistic art gallery, the art gallery portion of it, but it does have exhibitions on sort of the history of the region. Going from prehistoric times all the way up to modern times, the usual kind of thing. I won't say it was the most amazing museum I've ever been to, but it's also pretty good as well. Pretty decent, worth going to. Food wise, mostly Turkish actually. There wasn't too much Tajik. I did go to one Tajik restaurant, which was really, really good, but there wasn't that much. Certainly not in the city, right in the heart of the centre of the city. So it was a bit, I didn't get to experience that much. And I did pick up a stomach bug, maybe from Turkish food I had, maybe from some water I drank from what I thought was a safe water fountain in the hostel. So there you go. That's one of the things that happened. Overall, very friendly people, very safe city. I mean, quite a few times men would say, "Salam alaikum," have a hand on the heart to me, because obviously I stood out as a foreigner. And women didn't really do that too much, but it wasn't because of any sort of restriction. It's an Islamic country, but it's actually very liberal. So I just think it was just a generic cultural thing, maybe. I really enjoyed Tajikistan. I had really good fun there. And then I went on to Bishkek. Bishkek is the capital of Kyrgyzstan, and it's a very different place. So first of all, I flew to Tashkent first, and then on to Bishkek. I don't know why I can get simple direct flights there. It all seems to be the same thing with overland trips, but there you go, whatever. Bishkek, very different. It just feels like it hasn't developed since Russian times. I'm sure there are lots of differences, and saying there are a few newer buildings, but not that many. It's not seen as where it's had a skyline increase. It's a city that seems to be very flat, and has only really just started to get into the new construction phase. It's as I say, it just feels like it's maintained its Soviet heritage a bit more. Or I say maintained, it just hasn't changed much. My hostel was the Tunduk hostel, which is about 6 kilometers outside the city centre. It was one of the best hostels I've ever been in. It had this massive garden, had a pool, which was wonderful, especially in that heat. I had a private room with the 2 beds. I had lots of space, lots of room, and also private space as well. There was a bit of an issue with getting around, because I didn't get myself a local SIM card, and I wasn't able to use the taxi app called Yandex Go, which meant I had to get other people to get taxis for me, which is a bit of a pain in the backside. But everyone was very accommodating, whether it be in the hostel or within local bars or restaurants. They would always get it for me, and it was actually no problem, because all the Yandex does is it orders the cab. It doesn't pay for the cab. You still pay cash for the cabs. Bishkek itself, in the city centre. I mean, everything in the city centre everything you want to see in the city is in this very small area. The Kyrgyz State Museum, again, a very good, very interesting, very standard history of the Kyrgyz region from prehistoric times to modern times. It was in one of these sort of Soviet marble palatial type buildings, which seems to be a big thing for that area. I also went to the Fine Arts Museum, which was interesting. I mean, like a lot of these places in this region, they love their carpets. And some of the artwork seemed to be, it was not what I would call fine arts. There's only really one painting that really grabbed my eye, and I still need to find an image of that online for a video. But it was worth it. Half an hour of browsing artwork, and if you really are into just studying all the paintings, then you can spend a good hour or two in there. I'm not someone who does it. I look at paintings, and if it grabs my eye, it grabs my eye. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And there was only really one work of art that really did that for me. In terms of food, I didn't really get much in terms of the local cuisine there. There was one particular restaurant that I went to a couple of times, which had one of the nicest toilets I've ever seen in my life. It was great, but the main reason I went there was because of Wi-Fi. I wanted to make sure, just because obviously didn't have a local SIM card. I wanted to make sure that I was able to sort of message people and sort things out that I needed to. So then after that, there was Almaty. Now I got a bus to Almaty from Bishkek, which was great. It was about 6 hours on the bus. And as I say, it's about half an hour from Bishkek to the border, and then you do the transfer. And it's fantastic. Bus. It was full, but it was comfortable, air conditioned. There was a couple of stops. Well, there was a stop at the border, and there was a stop within Kazakhstan, so about halfway. Got to Almaty a bit early, which was amazing. I decided to get a taxi from one of the local taxi touts, which I know was a lot more expensive than I would have done, but obviously because I didn't have the app, didn't have a SIM card, didn't have the app, I had to take what I could get. Got me to my hotel, and there was a bit of an issue with my accommodation in Almaty, so I've still got to sort some things out in terms of money I spent that I feel I need to get a refund on. But I had this hotel about 4 kilometers outside the city centre, away from the train station, which again was a problem in terms of taxis or whatever. But again, people were more than helpful in that respect. Almaty was fantastic. It was a very European country. If you think about Tajikistan, was very much more sort of Asian, very much kind of more, I would say, more Middle Eastern Asian. Bishkek was more sort of old school Soviet. Almaty was very European. A big section of the city centre has been paved over, so it's just open to pedestrians, and it's generated a really nice sort of cafe culture, sort of Parisian, Viennese type. Everyone's out and about in the evening, families, kids, a whole mix of people. Everything's very safe, everything's very vibrant. Street music, the street performers. There's a great buzz in the area. I absolutely loved it. Obviously, here's the Kazakhstan book. So where did I go? All right, so there was, I've got to try and find here it is. So in terms of where I went in the city centre, just outside the city centre, which I think is a roundabout down here, there was what was it called? The Kazakh State Museum or something like the Central State Museum. That's actually here, the Central State Museum. That was actually kind of a little bit disappointing, actually, because it was in a massive building, really this grand sort of, again, it almost looked kind of like a cross between sort of Soviet and Islamic. And it looked like it started off really well. In the basement, you go in, and there's it starts off with prehistory. It starts with the dinosaurs. You think, okay, it's going to go really right through the history. And there's a bit about sort of early human beings. And then suddenly it's about Islam. So it seems like they just missed out an entire portion of human world history. And it got a bit of a mess. I mean, there wasn't exactly a great deal of easy guidance taking you around where you needed to go to get the raw benefits of it. There was a lot in there, definitely. There was a lot to see and a lot to experience, but it just didn't seem to be very well laid out or well organised. So I say the individual bits were fantastic, but it just wasn't sort of put together particularly well. You think it'd be a bit better than that in a museum like that. There was also actually before that I went to, so if you look on the map, so right here you've got this place called Panfilov Park. There's a memorial, and right next to that is a museum of musical instruments. And this is just a collection of Kazakh folk musical instruments. So I think so obviously with a musician, it's something you can get a lot more out of, because you can understand or how how they work. You can sort of see how the dombras and the kolbas, I think they're called. I forget. I'd have to look up the names. just a fascinating thing to see how many different types of musical instruments. I think the dombra was the one which is like a violin, but it looked like almost like a massive salad bowl with the strings going across. Yeah, in the video you'll see what I mean. It's that was actually a very nice little museum. There was a museum in Dushanbe I wanted to go to about musical instruments, but I couldn't find it. And I found the street, but I just couldn't find that damn building. I couldn't find any sort of signpost. Couldn't find the number of that it was listed at. I just didn't get to see it. It was a real shame. But that one in Almaty was great. Fortunately, I was there also on a Monday, which is when a lot of museums close, so I didn't get to see the. So what the other ones I tried to go to the Almaty City Museum. That was called. There was the Archaeological Museum that was closed, which is it's just one of these things. Bad timing, I think. But it was great to just sort of wander around the streets as well. It was a fantastic city, just easily the one I felt most at home being in. And then after that, it was Astana. Now Astana is kind of notorious in that it's a brand new capital city. It was actually originally called Akmola. So it wasn't just one that's been completely built from scratch. It was just so the city of Akmola was there for a long time, and it was just named as the capital in 1997, and it was renamed Astana, and a whole new building has gone up. So if I have to check this up. So if you look at this map here, this square I think is the original part of Akmola, and this all here is the brand new stuff. This is the stuff that you'll see on documentaries about Astana and the crazy development they've gone through. Almost kind of sort of, well, I don't want to say certain words, but glorifying the president type thing, glorifying the nation. Similar to architecture to Dushanbe in terms of some hyper modern neoclassical kind of stuff. But weirdly, it also didn't quite feel like that either. I actually got there by train from Almaty, I should say. It was a 16-hour train overnight. Booked a first class camera, booked 2 beds in it it was like £32 each, and with the fees and whatever, it was about £75. So yeah, that was fine. Now that train journey was fantastic. Met a really interesting guy who I'll talk about in one of my videos. But the city itself, and obviously went with these kind of places. There's another one in the region called Ashgabat, which is the capital of Turkmenistan, which has been hyper rebuilt. And a lot of people who go there say that it's incredibly quiet, that it's just a series of marble facades and and wide avenues and nothing much else. Well, Astana wasn't like that. Despite being this essentially a fake city, it was a city full of people. I mean, walking around, the buses were always full. The streets always had people out there. They had the restaurants and cafes, the little shops, and they had people in them all the time, as you would expect from a normal city. And yes, the road, a lot of the roads were very wide, and it meant so things were far apart. But given that the mid to high rise development as well, there were people there. It wasn't a dead city. It was a busy city, definitely. In terms of the architecture, well, that depends on how you feel about that sort of thing. The Bayturek Tower is the big landmark of the city. And one thing I liked about it was that it's not really big. It's only 97 meters tall. 97 referring to 1997 when the city became the capital. But because of the way the city is built, you could still see, you got a sense of the city skyline. It wasn't this sort of dead city. Well, not dead. It wasn't like you were just in like. So when I was in Tokyo, and I went up the old Tokyo Tower, the one that looks like the Eiffel Tower, because there's a lot of development really close by. You're almost just looking straight at office buildings around. Whereas with the Bayturek Tower, because there's a lot of space around you, things are further back. So even though you're not towering over these buildings, you kind of feel like you are, just because of the distance between them. So you do get a sense of what the city looks like. there was, so where did I go? I went, so the only, I went to the National Museum of the Republic of Kazakhstan, which is an incredibly big building, one of the hyper-modern ones. Yeah, that was fantastic. And it turned out that part of the section, which was about it's an exhibition about the first president of Kazakhstan. That was actually originally, according to this book, it was actually a museum in another part of the city which I went to, and because it's been moved now, it wasn't where I went to. But that's fine, because that was actually originally located in sort of the older part of Astana. So when I went there the next day, it was actually, it wasn't there. But there was another museum that I went to devoted to a famous Kazakh writer. So it was surprising to say there was this old part of Astana that, that had a bit more of it's almost like if you go to Dubai, where you got the bit that everyone knows, the hyper modern bit. It kind of feels a bit stale and a bit. But then you go to Dubai Creek, and it's a really vibrant area, really nice. The area of the locals. It's a similar thing to that, except that the new part of Astana is actually pretty cool as well. Also definitely worth going to. I definitely don't be put off by some of the negative things people say about this sort of modern development of Astana. And that was pretty much it, really. So in terms of which was my favourite, I can't say. I really can't say, because they're all fantastic in different ways. Astana was definitely the most surprising. I went there almost as like not like it wasn't a bucket list as such, but it was almost like a rite of passage. You go to a country, you really should go to the capital. But I'm glad I did, because I say it was very surprising. It wasn't the kind of sterile facade that I had worried it was going to be. And I did have horse meat. So that was the local delicacy I had in Kazakhstan. I had a horse meat sausage. It was horse meat sausage and fries in Astana. It was actually pretty good. I've had horse meat before, but that was a horse meat steak. These were sausages. They're pretty good. I really enjoyed them. So I can't really say one place was better than the other. They just had their different aspects. I think sort of Almaty was the most comfortable for me, was the thing I was familiar with. Astana was the most surprising. I think maybe Dushanbe was a bit most exciting, but Bishkek was the most honest in a way. So it's a tricky one to really say whether one was better than the other. They all had the plus points, they all had their negative points, and I really liked all of them. This was a fantastic trip, and I'm really glad I did it. I had thought about doing sort of North Africa or South America, but no, I picked Central Asia, and it worked out fantastically well. It's very, very cheap area as well, but so I'm going to be putting some videos out over the next few weeks. But this is just my sort of overview. So if you are looking for an adventurous trip, somewhere to go that's a bit different, but still going to get some real value out of it, then I would definitely suggest those 3 countries. Just make sure you get a local SIM card, so you can use, at the very least, so you can use the Yandex Go app, so you can get taxis, because there's a good chance you'll need them. And yeah, just go for it. So I'm gonna have to start putting some videos together now, and I'm gonna have to start getting the story out. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy the next few videos about my trip to Central Asia.